regular meeting of the Del Mar College Board of Regents to order at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. This is our first board meeting of the new year, so Happy New Year to everyone. We have a quorum and can conduct business. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Ms. Estrada, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And would you all please join me in reading the Del Mar College Vision Statement? Del Mar College will be the premier choice for life-changing educational opportunities provided by responsive, innovative faculty and staff who empower students to improve local and global communities. Thank you. Del Mar College is streaming live audio and video from the official Board of Regents meetings on the college's website in real time, with the exception of portions of the meeting considered as closed session by statute. We will begin today with two sets of recognitions. Dr. Beth Lewis will recognize some outstanding students, and then Ms. Tammy McDonald will recognize some of our employees.
Come on, guys. Come on up here. They're being a little shy. I'm pleased to announce that 5 of our music students earned positions in the 2020 Texas Community College Band Directors Association All-State Symphonic Band. They are Manuel Hasso, okay. Gerald Espejo, Rudy Benjamin Camarino, okay. Joseph Salinas, Eric Heatherly, and Joel Hernandez. Additionally, Joel Hernandez was named as the winner of the 2020 Concerto competition. He will serve as the featured guest soloist during the 2020 Texas Musical Educators Association All-State Band Convention Concert, which will be held in San Antonio this month. Our special thanks to Dr. Abel Saldivar Ramirez, Associate Professor and Conductor of the DMC Wind Ensemble, and the numerous faculty mentors of these students. These accomplishments demonstrate their dedication and countless hours of practice. And Cindy Bridges, Dr. Bridges is here. Dr. Bridges, you want to come up? Our chair of the music department.
These students went through a rigorous audition process. They were recorded by our own sound recording technology students and professors. And then Joel, of course, recorded his audition for the solo and has auditioned against any student that wanted to enter, any student from community colleges across the state that wanted to enter as a soloist, and won this position as soloist. And truly all of these students are competing with all community college students in music, in instrumental music from across the state. So it's truly a big deal. So we are so proud of them.
And thank you to those students who did the music demo this morning for the tour of the General Academic Music Building. I think there was at least a couple in there.
Good afternoon. If I could ask Dan, Lisa, and Natalie, come on up, please. I'm very honored today to present to you 2 of our staff members and 1 of our faculty members who have earned the doctorate degrees. We have Dr. Dan Fisher, Dan right behind me, there you go. Director of Counseling, Disability, and Retention Services, earned his doctorate degree from North Central University in Organizational Leadership. We have Dr. Lisa Mullenberg, Assistant Professor of Learning Resources, earned her doctorate degree from National American University in Community College Leadership. We have Dr. Natalie Villarreal, Director of External and Board Relations, earned her doctorate degree from Kansas State University in Community College Leadership. So please join me in congratulating these well-deserved doctor, and doctor.
Congratulations on your continued learning. Lifelong learning is a goal for all of us. We will now move into our general public comments. These are for non-agenda items. We have several folks who have signed up to speak, beginning with Mr. Jack Gordy.
Yes, I'm Jack Gordy, and I live at 4118 Bray Drive. And I'm going to talk about the same thing I've been talking about. And it's about the amount of money that we're paying, or that we are paying, the taxpayers, for outside attorneys. We're supposed to have a college attorney. But the amount of money we're paying for outside attorneys, $215,829, and we paid just for phone calls now. One phone call, and this is hard to believe. I don't know how many of you can believe it. It says it lasted 2.8 hours, and we paid $1,428 for that phone call to Austin. And then we paid for another phone call that was 5.3 hours, $2,703. $2,703. And if anybody can believe that a phone call lasted 5.3 hours, that's hard to believe. I don't know, but it just looks like that attorney up there is getting money that he shouldn't be getting. That's a lot of money to pay out to some outside attorney when we're supposed to have a college attorney. My suggestion, I don't know what you people think, but we need to look for an attorney that knows what he's doing, that can take care of legal stuff. Not hire somebody for a little half-page letter, simple. I got some copies of it, simple letters, and we pay $512 to write that half-page simple letter. I got copies of it. Anybody sitting there could have wrote the letter. But we paid somebody out of Austin to do it. I don't think that's right. And the other thing I want to talk about, all of you got a copy of the letter that I sent, is the money that we're paying for staff members to eat. I don't have a problem with the Board of Regents getting a free meal when you have a meeting, because you don't get no compensation. And if you got somebody doing some volunteer work here at Del Mar, I don't have a problem with that, them getting a free meal. And I've talked to about 100 taxpayers, and all of them agrees with me that it's unjustified. And it's not treating the taxpayers right that we pay for the staff members to eat when they all make over $100,000. And some of them makes $300,000, one of them, the president, and we pay for him to eat. I don't know. To me, that's ridiculous and unjustified. And this Board of Regents should put a stop to it.
Thank you, Mr. Gordy.
Should put a stop to it.
Thank you, Mr. Gordy.
Well,
Next we have
I'll remember it come election time.
Next we have Mr. John Wilson.
Hello, I'm John Wilson. I live at 121 Del Mar, and I was speaking specifically to the agenda item regarding the expansion of space, but it's a little bit broader than that as well. Let me begin by saying I know there are some very good people serving on this board. Some of you I know personally, others we have mutual acquaintances who speak highly of you. But I'd like to remind each and every one of you that you have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers and the students of this community. And being on the Board of Regents means more than just attending a monthly meeting. It requires some research and due diligence of your own. You shouldn't just accept whatever statistics are being presented to you internally at face value, because there are individuals who have less than altruistic motives and are pushing agendas. The truth is, Del Mar Community College is currently in a state of crisis. It's underperforming by any objective metric you choose to look at, whether it's cost per student, our tax rate, which is the second highest in the state of Texas and will soon be the highest once we issue all the bonds that are currently online. And given that our full-time physical student enrollment here has decreased by 12% from 2010. And that trend is not likely to reverse itself. And when I say physical, let's exclude the dual enrollment students who never set foot on campus. Let's exclude the e-learning or the online students who do the same. They're never on campus. So if we're talking about building facility space for students, this is the key metric we should be looking at. And it's in decline. So currently, there currently exists a surplus of physical facility space within Del Mar. So, and that's before the Southside campus gets completed. So I would urge all of you to look at creative, cost-effective ways to reallocate, repurpose facilities to meet the needs. Because I'm willing to acknowledge that the needs within the program vary and they shift over time. So I would urge each of you to take a look at that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next, we have Mr. Sean Flanagan.
Hi, thank you very much. You all have an important job. You are representing us and you're spending our money. When you spend our money, I'm hoping that you understand some of the facts that you are given do not necessarily represent reality. Mr. Wilson made a comment concerning the enrollment versus full-time student enrollment. I've heard the enrollment's 11,800. If this was a high school, that would mean something. All the high school kids are full-time. Most of the students at Del Mar are part-time. The only relative enrollment stat you need to look at, and it's in all your papers, is your full-time student enrollment. This year, or 2018-19, full-time student enrollment was about 7,000 flat. 10 years ago, full-time student enrollment was 8,000. That is a 12 to 13% decline in enrollment in the last 10 years. That's one thing. Please, when you make these decisions, do not be flustered by short-term variations on what the head count is. The head count's not where the money comes from. The money comes from the amount of tuition and fees and full-time enrolled students we have here. Second thing, you're looking at some dorm situation. You have been presented a poll that said there's overwhelming support for dorms. And that's true on that poll. That's a true factoid. But the people that were giving the poll did not give the relevant facts to the students when they took the poll. The relevant facts are, A, on-campus housing in every time is going to be more expensive than off-campus housing, usually at least 25%. They need to understand when they say, yeah, I like on-campus housing, they need to understand it's going to cost more. The other factor that people will pay the additional cost is for convenience. A&M Corpus, they pay more on campus than they do off campus because it's in a central location. The configuration at Del Mar is not centralized. You're added a third campus, you now got 3 configurations. You need to redo that poll, tell them what it's actually going to cost, an estimation, and tell them what the commute times are going to be from the proposed site of the dorms or on-campus housing to the other campuses. Then ask them what they think. I think you'll get a vastly different result. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Next, we have James Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Department of Social Sciences as Professor of History here at Del Mar College, and also speaking on behalf of the Del Mar College Cultural Programs Committee. I wanted to invite you to an event coming up on February 17th in the evening from 6 until 8 p.m., and I have a flyer that I can pass out here in just a second as well. Dr. Laura Belmonte is coming to Del Mar College on February 17th. She is going to give a talk entitled The International LGBT Rights Movement, A History. She's a professor of history at Virginia Tech University right now. She's also dean of Virginia Tech College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences. She formerly was at Oklahoma State University, though, where she was one of my mentors when I was in graduate school. Her talk is going to trace the history of the international movement of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights from the mid-19th century to the present day. Dr. Belmonte's lecture uses selected individuals, organizations, and events to illuminate critical junctures in global LGBT advocacy and to evaluate the movement's legacies and contemporary challenges. And so I'd like to invite you, as well as all those who might be watching or listening to this broadcast as well, to that event, again, February 17th, 6 until 8 p.m. It's going to be in the library on the 5th floor, room 514 of the library on February 17th. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. If you'll give those Ms. Pettis, thank you. She'll make sure those are distributed for you. I don't have any other cards for public comment. Does anyone else wish to speak during public comment? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the college president's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple items quickly. One of the ideas that I wanted to share with everybody today is a program that we're working on with Flower Bluff Independent School District, and it's being called a Flower Bluff Viking Academy. And this is where we've been working with the leadership over at the school district to pull together a program that's kind of in between the things that we're doing with collegiate high school versus just straight dual credit. But there's a program coming whereby the school district is going to be committed to busing over students for face-to-face classes at our physical facilities starting this fall. We're hoping to start with a number of around 100 students, and these are the rising juniors. Those juniors and seniors coming up will be the primary target for that. So more to come, and I can't wait to roll this out. The idea with them is that, and they approached us with this idea, was for them to begin not wasting any time, not waiting for the South Campus to be built, but to begin bringing those students for face-to-face classes. I'll remind everybody that we have large numbers of solid numbers of dual credit students currently with Flower Bluff ISD. Mostly online types of dual credit offerings. So this is going to change it up a bit. So stay tuned for the Flower Bluff Viking Academy. More news to come. We'll have a public press release on that coming, but I just wanted to mention that for today's purposes. And then on January 22nd, I attended the first of the annual calendar's TACC's quarterly meeting in Austin. We continue to move steadily ahead, and I continue to serve as the treasurer and secretary for the Association of Community Colleges. And as you might imagine, we are getting ready for next year's session, and that'll be here before you know it. That concludes my report. Glad to answer any questions.
Dr. Scamia, this Viking Academy, is this going to replace the partnership that they have with A&M Corpus Christi?
No, I don't believe so. I think it'll be an addition to. I don't. This is one more add-on. They're expanding basically the partnership that we already have.
Okay.
So Principal Crenshaw is a proud Del Mar alum and is really believes in adding to the opportunities for those students. And so I think it's just an add to.
Great. I look forward to it.
Yes, ma'am.
My question was sort of around the same line. They don't have an early college at Flower Bluff, or they do with A&M?
So they have the university prep program that's evolving, shall we say, and I think they're going to continue to offer certain classes there, but they're really just advancing the program of the scope of work with the dual credit that we're doing. And they want more, their students are asking for more face-to-face opportunities, and when the new campus opens up, they know it's going to be a 7-minute bus ride to that location, so they want to begin ramping up right now and not miss any opportunities for those students that they can, starting this fall.
Good, thank you.
Any additional questions for Dr. Escamilla? Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at our pending business, the document that we use to give you a little bit of advance warning on topics that are going to be coming up in the next few months, regularly scheduled agenda items, as well as things that the board has requested come back. So you'll see in March, we typically do our annual ethics update at this February meeting. I elected to move that to the March meeting. Right now that's a little bit of a light meeting, so I figured we could move that annual ethics update to that March meeting. We'll also see enrollment update and a legislative update, and then in April we have Estrada Hinojosa, who is our bond counsel. They'll be providing, excuse me, not bond counsel, our financial advisors, be providing some updates there, as well as our SACS and QEP and other reports in April. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know or let Dr. Escamilla know. And we will move on to our consent agenda items. These are items that were of routine nature. So we have the approval of minutes for meetings in December and acceptance of our investment reports from December as well. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as read? So Ms. Estrada and Mr. Rivas makes the second to that motion. Is there any questions or comments from board members? Any public comment on these items? Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption of the 3 consent agenda items, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That motion carries. Moving into our regular agenda, we are going to start our regular agenda with discussion and possible action related to the recommendation of Professor Emeritus status for Dr. Barbara Craig. Dr. Lewis?
Thank you. Dr. Craig? So it is my pleasure to request this resolution in recognition and profound appreciation for distinguished service by Dr. Barbara Craig. Whereas Dr. Barbara Craig, Professor of English, served as an exemplary educator among her peers at the college for 37 years. During her tenure at the college, Dr. Craig has always advocated for student success. She was instrumental in including the part-time student population for consideration of scholarships and outstanding student awards. Whereas Dr. Craig's list of recognitions and accomplishments is quite notable. Dr. Craig is the 2012 and 11th recipient of the Dr. Eileen Creighton Award for Teaching Excellence. She has been nominated as Del Mar College Teacher of the Year in multiple semesters since 2008. Dr. Craig was named Who's Who among America's teachers in 2005 and 1998. Her credits include creating curriculum for developmental education courses, developing the popular portrayal of women in literature course, and facilitating healthy living by offering the quick fixes for stress workshops. We could all use that. Whereas Dr. Craig is known for her mentorship of students and faculty, innovative teaching methods, involvement with college and professional affiliate activities, and her generosity outside the campus community that even reaches around the globe and touches the life of rural village children in Ghana by providing books for libraries. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Del Mar College's Board of Regents formally acknowledges and extends its profound appreciation for service to our college and community by recognizing Dr. Barbara Craig with the title of Professor Emeritus on this day of February 4th, 2020.
Congratulations, Dr. Craig. If you'll just stay there for a moment, because I'm sure we're going to want to hear from you in just a moment. But first, it would give me great pleasure to entertain a motion to adopt this resolution. Ms. Libby Avert makes the motion. Ms. Hutchison seconds that motion. Would board members like to make any comments before we vote?
Thank
Yes.
you for your service to Del Mar College.
Congratulations, and you've got an impressive resume.
Dr. Craig, our students are extremely lucky to have professors of your caliber at Del Mar College, and for the tenure and the work that you have done here. This is so well deserved, and we are thankful that you have dedicated your life to our students. Is there public comment for this item? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Congratulations, Dr. Craig. Would you like to please address the board?
Thank you. I have enjoyed all those 37 years with the students. It has been delightful. And my colleagues have been all in and out of the department have been wonderful, and I've really enjoyed that. I've always been an advocate for students, for colleagues. Now I want to be an advocate for retirees. Because something I learned the day after I retired is you put 37 years of your life into this school. And one of the things I was so looking forward to in retirement was being able to do more of the cultural speaker opportunities that the college has. But suddenly you're no longer in that loop and you don't know about them. And I've been inwardly complaining about this for a year, and then I had a visit from a friend who recently retired from Berea College in Kentucky, and they have a faculty email list. A retiree email list, so that all of the information about what's going on campus, about changes in departments, changes in names, contacts, things like that, goes out to retirees as well. And I have to tell you, I have come across, just in the last few months, several potential students, my server at a restaurant the other day, the woman at the post office, who talk to me and want to know, where do I go if I want to go back? Where do I go if I want to go part-time? And I'm not sure that the answers I give them are right anymore because I'm out of the loop. So I just want to make a pitch for including retirees.
Well, I think you have made that pitch in the right room. At the right time. At the right time.
With the right
there are
people.
several folks I have just seen scribbling down that recommendation from amongst this room. So thank you. Dr. Escamilla.
Dr. Barber, thank you for your years of service. I was one of those people writing things down and making eye contact with our Chief Information Officer, if you know what I mean. Thank you for the years. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the notes. Thank you for the kind notes that you would send me that you have sent me from time to time. All the stress toys that you've sent, I've worn them out, so I need maybe a refresher, a squeezed stress toy maybe, or something to. But thank you most of all for what you've done for our students, for the generations that have come through, that you've mentored and improved their skill with the English language. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Craig.
Thank you.
We will move on. It's hard to move on after wonderful agenda items like that. But we'll move on to business now. Mr. Garcia is going to open up the discussion and give us a presentation on possible action regarding tuition rates, possible increase per semester hour for our tuition rates by $2 for the this says 2019-2020. I think it's supposed to be 2020-2021.
That is correct. I'm sorry.
Correct. Academic
Tuition
year.
increase for 2021. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Mr. Garcia.
Yes. So good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. President, and members of the board. The PowerPoint that you see before you has not changed since the December board presentation. With that said, if you don't mind, I plan to deliver a high-level overview of the same information, followed by the reading of today's recommended tuition and fee action item. Okay? Okay. All right, so let's begin with the budget plan calendar. This year's calendar accelerates the budget approval deadline of June from last year's deadline of August. The college is already off to a good start with the completion of our budget kickoff meeting and the budget training in January. The next critical milestone is the review of the budget request by our respective deans and directors scheduled for February the 21st. We next have information around student characteristics that provide some perspective of how we match up with our peer groups. This slide includes data points around student headcount, credit hour production, and percentage of full-time and part-time students. This slide focuses on, I'm sorry, any questions on this one? Okay. We next have information around student characteristics that provide some perspective of how we match up with our peer group, specifically on student affordability. I want to point out two things from this slide. One, the Del Mar student has the least amount of student debt relative to our peer groups, with the exception of Laredo Community College. Second, with the exception of Central Texas, the Del Mar student receives on the average $4,337 in Pell Financial Aid, which is the most amount relative to our peer groups. Very, very important information. Okay, so this slide and the following next two slides includes information about the college's tuition and fee structure, the annual cost of attendance, and a 10-year historical view of tuition increase. I want to point out two things from these three slides. First, the college continues to be the best value option with an annual cost of attendance of $3,260. This becomes more affordable when qualifying students take advantage of the free money that is given out by our college's Office of Financial Aid. As I previously mentioned, the average Pell Financial Aid award is $4,337. Second, the college is visioning a steady and modest tuition increase strategy that will assist the Del Mar student with planning on how they will finance their education moving forward. So here's tuition rates structure, tuition rate increase change history, and then the annual cost of attendance that I just spoke about. All right. Next is a tuition and fee for fiscal year 2021. The college is recommending a steady and modest tuition increase that includes the $1 as referred to in our board policy, plus $1 more for a total of $2. The semester hour tuition rate would change from $67 to $69. The increase will be used to fund instruction, academic support, student services, and other operational needs. I have for you 2 examples of student services. The first example is the college recently introduced a new online transcript service, which is a partnership with Parchment. This service was a success when the college issued 400 transcripts when the college was closed during the holiday break. Added value service. That's what I call added value service. Going the extra mile. The second example has to do with golf carts. Yes, golf carts. The Viking Express service is a transportation service that the college instituted during the construction phase of the Gamby. It was terminated at the completion of our construction. Thereafter, the college received student feedback from Beverly Cage, Director of Student Leadership and Campus Life, and Natasha Perez, President of the Student Government Association. The students wanted to continue this service, so it was reinstated. These are just a few examples of what I call, again, added value student service that the college delivers just because it helps our students, and it's just one less thing that our students have to worry about. My final comment is that the tuition increase recommendation has been vetted with the student government, and it was well received. If there are no questions and it is okay with the board and the president, I would like to move forward with reading today's tuition action item.
Go ahead and read the action item and then we'll have discussion.
Okay, good. I have it here. Let me get my laptop. Sorry. You know, I now feel what my dad felt when he told me to help him out with the VCR many, many years ago. Okay. All right, here we go. The college tuition rates have been reviewed and proposed to increase the 2020 and 2021 academic tuition will be presented. Board Policy 3.21 provides for a minimum of an increase of $1 per semester credit hour. It is proposed that an additional $1 per semester credit hour for a total of $2 per semester credit hour be considered. The Board Policy B 3.21 tuition policy states that per semester credit hour tuition rate for credit courses shall increase by a minimum of $1 each fall semester for the Texas and district residents. Texas out-of-district residents and out-of-state residents and foreign students. Any student whose legal residence is outside the Del Mar College District shall be charged an out-of-district fee. All student tuition and fees shall be set by the Board of Regents. Action item, discuss and possible action regarding the increase of college academic tuition rates by a total of $2 per semester credit hour.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments for the
Raul,
board?
what was our increase last year? Did we have one last year?
Yeah, so we went up $3. That's the $1 plus the $2.
That was 2019 or 2018?
So that was for the 2019-2020 year, this year, where we're currently at, yes.
But it went up in 2018?
And in 2018, I would have to go back to.
Well, no, I was reading in here, it says the last tuition increase was 2018. But we did have an increase last year, right?
We did have an increase in 2020.
So the article-
On that slide, I have a $3 increase. Yes. So for more clarity, $3 in 2020. The year before, that was $11.
And you're not, we're not increasing student fees?
We are not touching student fees.
Okay. Other questions, Mr.
Here,
Bennett?
here's my concern. First of all, it's a bargain for the students. Our tuition is an absolute bargain for the students. But we also represent the taxpayers. And many of us attended a class in San Francisco put on by Lone Star College. And at that class, they said their goal was to meet the cost of the state average of all 50 community colleges per full-time student, which was $11,700. Well, Del Mar's a little bit over that. If you take the budget, divide it by the full-time student equivalent that's published in the State Higher Education Board of 7,064 students, you get $17,966 per full-time student, 50% above the average. So the students are getting a bargain, but the taxpayers are paying an exorbitant amount to run this college. And that's one of my concerns. We want to take care of the students, but we have to take care of the taxpayers as well.
I'm not looking at what you're referring to there. When you say full-time enrollment, is that full-time equivalent?
It's
or is
full-time
it
student equivalent.
Full-time student equivalent.
7064. I think it's in the financial statements as well.
Okay, so FT, full-time equivalent.
So Lone Star College puts their goal at 11,700, which is the state average. We're 50% above that.
Are you making a recommendation regarding tuition with that statement, or?
I'm saying the students are getting a bargain with the tuition.
Okay.
And I would like to see the taxpayers get a bargain as well, somehow.
Okay. Thank you. Are there questions related or comments related to the tuition action before us? Ms. Hutchison?
I just note it looks like, if my math's right, over the last 10 years, we've had a annual increase in just the tuition of about $3. So this is actually less than our average increase. I think it's a bargain as well.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes, I'm never will be in favor of getting an increase in tuition and things like that, because, I mean, even now, times are a little harder for everybody else, And so, but at the same token, I understand that, we have to, because we got new buildings, we got new things that are going on. But, Del Mar has always been recognized as a college here that that's very affordable, and it is. But in the same token, though, anytime you hear an increase, like I heard it this morning on TV, and I said, wow, So anytime you hear increase in tuition and fees, you kind of like, you want to pay a little more attention to that. And that's where I'm at, because the fact that we want more kids in here, so anytime you say, hey, we're going to raise it up, how's that going to affect us? We don't know. We're going to find out how it's going to affect. And, you look at it and say, well, $2 is not that big of a deal. But, it could be for some people. But anyway, I'm just not in favor of raising any tuition fees, If $2 is not that big, then why are we doing it?
So very good. We have two different perspectives from two different spectrums.
Yeah. I'll get this one. So, Regent Salinas, the reason why we bring something forth that's even as nominal, seemingly as nominal as the $2 right here, is because when we've met in December for the past few years, what we've talked about is a philosophy of tapping the wheel, because $2 today, what it means over the years is a serious investment by the students, and it's a considerable amount of money over time for the college, and it does help us offset the services like we're talking about doing, and like we are doing already. And so when we've talked to the Board of Regents, we've understood, and I've understood, that it was a matter of philosophy to tap the wheel, if you will, every year to some degree. We've done it before where we didn't have a tuition raise. I don't know, I guess it was 2016 or so. Yeah. And then it was kind of like an accordion effect. So that particular group, for that particular snapshot in time, had zero increase. They had zero contribution. So we treated that group very differently than the other groups. Now again, I'm just restating what we've said over the years. And please, Regents, for those who were with us at those particular years, 15, 16, and 17 especially, jump in, please. But the idea is to tap the wheel, albeit in a modest fashion, as opposed to not increasing at all, and treating all the and it's a slow and steady drip, if you will, and that has more to do with the financials of the college and consideration for all groups equally as they come. Now you can treat them all equally one way and overcharge or undercharge, but this is a way that balances the students, as Regent Bennett was saying, the bargain that the students are getting overall, and still maintaining fiscal responsibility for operations for the college. But I mean, that was the history, and that's again what we're trying to adhere to by having an increase versus no increase. I understand what you're saying, though.
Other questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion? So Ms. Averett makes the motion to increase the per semester hour tuition rate by $2 for the 2020-2021 academic year. A second by Dr. Sherwood. Is there public comment on this item? I don't see any public comment. All those in favor of the tuition increase, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. So that's 7 ayes and 1 nay. That motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia.
ma'am.
Stay there because you're going to talk to us or introduce the discussion of possible action regarding our quarterly investment report.
Yes. We have today Mr. David McElway with Patterson and Associates. He will be presenting the college's quarterly investment report, and we'll also go over trending financial economics and geopolitical activities impacting the college's investment yields.
Hello.
Thank you all for having me out this afternoon.
Thank you for joining
the
us.
portfolio. We previously met to discuss the fiscal year end, and obviously this is the end of the first quarter. We've kind of had a bumpy year so far. Politically speaking, we've had quite a few events going on. We've had everything from the riots in Hong Kong and numerous standoffs between the armed forces and the students there. We've had these on and off trade talks going on between us and China over the tariff situation. We've kind of put a Band-Aid on a few things here and there, but we haven't really gotten ultimately to the final goal on the tariff front. We saw the Federal Reserve reverse course last year in 2018. We were increasing rates, and all of a sudden we put the brakes on, and we've had 3 rate cuts in 2019. The language has gone neutral with the Fed. They're kind of taking it on a as-needed basis, seeing the various economic statistics that are rolling in. And as we touched on before, I think the Fed's fears are more from the lack of growth globally. Again, we've had pretty solid footing here in the U.S., and we expect that solid economic backdrop here will remain somewhat constant. We've also had tensions flaring up over in the Middle East with Iran. That sparked up right after the beginning of the year. And as a result, we've had interest rates coming down. We knew Brexit talks were coming up. We made it through those votes. And, now you got Scotland talking about trying to move to independence. And we actually had a big hiccup in the overnight lending rates in the fall. We had a spike up in the overnight repo rates. So, all that behind us, the overall backdrop has been a declining rate environment. And from the previous time we met, we've since seen the Treasury rates plummet another 30 basis points without the effect of a Fed funds rate cut. And that's predominantly from the volatility that we've seen both with Iran, with what's going on in China, and ultimately, there's always these exogenous events that come up that nobody can anticipate. And right now, it's the coronavirus. And that is also contributing to We saw the 2-year Treasury yields yesterday get all the way down to a 132. Our equity markets rolled over Friday. The Dow corrected 600 points. You saw the flight to safety, which pushes yields lower. And today we've got the Dow Jones back up 450 points. We've recouped, between yesterday's, we recouped 150 points. We're back to where we were Friday. And rates on a 2-year Treasury yield in one day, it doesn't sound like much, but going from a 132 low yield yesterday to about a 142 today, that's big time volatility that's going on in the fixed income markets. So, within the context of kind of reacting to the pockets of weakness and strength, we've been managing the portfolio, I think, masterfully well with regards to what rates are doing. We've taken more of a barbelled approach where we can go out and lock in a little bit of yield and also balance that with staying predictably short and sacrificing a little bit of yield for, kind of a blended weighted average maturity with an overall yield that's well above the Treasury yields. We've got, again, the Fed thinks that for the moment, they're on hold. They like where we are. Their mandate, when we talk about all the various inputs, like you're talking about raising tuition, there's always this inflationary pressure. And the Fed's target is like a 2% goal. If they see that start to heat up, they may then reverse course and talk about raising rates again. But right now, if you want to balance, possible rate cuts or lower rates versus higher rates, the list of criteria that could push rates lower is a lot lengthier. And the list that we could have a catalyst to push rates up right now is extremely short. So again, we're trying to maintain sufficient liquidity for the college's needs, and at the same time trying to get the best bang for the buck as far as portfolio yields. Again, we've had this amazing Treasury price rally. The last 30 basis points or so have strictly been kind of a momentum trade, if you will. Rates around the world are still negative in many parts of the world. Therefore, our market becomes more crowded as people go someplace where they feel that their principal is both safe and they're going to get a better yield than they would to stay in their homeland. The total Del Mar portfolio, broken down, about a third of it is in your local maintenance kind of general fund account. The construction funds, the 2018 Series B is roughly 31.5% of the portfolio, and the 2018 Series A is a little over 25.5%. Those big three pieces of the pie constitute 90% of the portfolio, with the other 10% of the portfolio being a small sliver of a 2017 construction, the INS fund, and some other small funds. This, again, we just talked about August 2018, which is kind of this middle column here, and we still have the 18-19 average highlighted there, but November is the first column on the left. You'll see that the market value of the portfolio is a little bit lower. That's the result of just natural spending coming out of the general fund. You can see the weighted average maturity shortened up a little bit there in November from August. We saw that the WAM dropped down to about 68 days. And the yield, naturally, the yield environment that we've been talking about, the yield obviously is coming down, but relative to the benchmark 6-month T-bill, you can still see that the pooled funds, which is going to be the local maintenance fund, excluding the construction funds, the portfolio is out yielding that by over 22 basis points. The earnings off of that general fund money was a little over $404,000. If you go back to 2018, that's when rates were peaking at around 3% on a T-bill was at a 244. An actual 2-year Treasury was around 3%. And just to put a little context around that today, as we speak right now, a 6-month T-bill is yielding around a 155, maybe slightly less than a 155, and a two-year treasury yield is right around a 141, 142. So the yields, again, which we don't have any control over in this room, I'm just trying to give you a full picture of where we are. So just on that 6-month T-bill, you've seen that decline to the tune of about 72 basis points. And that's almost in lockstep with what the Federal Reserve has done to the Fed funds rate, 75 basis points. Just to go forward and look at the next breakdown of how that pooled fund group is allocated, or the yields off of those various pools, you can see the average yield in November was on the portion of the portfolio that was in agencies, callable agencies, was a little over 2%. It was around a 2.065. The pools for your cash were earning around a 184, and you can see commercial paper yields were at a 222 versus a little over 270 in August. And the sweep funds, were those at the banks were just under 2%, and in November they were at a 151. So obviously, again, the overriding factor there is the Fed funds have been cut 75 basis points. You can see the change in the Treasury yields are pretty constant, and the CP rates are even kind of in lockstep with Treasury rates. You've seen that decline there, about 48 basis points. And the pools, which always operate with a lag for the things that are in there that haven't rolled off yet, that have to be reinvested at the new lower rates, that's still a decline of over 50 basis points there. Now, taking a look at that other big basket of funds, those are those construction funds. We saw that fund balance in November of 2019 was about 115 million. If you go back to the far right column in November, you saw that balance was about 143 million. The net effect there is just the fact that those construction funds are being put to work, obviously. The portfolio weighted average maturity is now higher where we are today, and that's the result of both having put money to work, luckily at some higher rates, which is keeping the portfolio yield up. We're still at a 212 average yield there. The construction funds have a little bit longer duration than the general funds do. The general funds are capped at a 2-year maximum maturity, whereas construction funds can go out slightly longer with a 3-year maximum maturity. But the overall weighted average maturity of those construction funds is just under 6 months at 170 days. Again, comparing that to the benchmark T-bill, the portfolio is out yielding that by roughly 40 basis points as of the end of November. The earnings on those construction funds was $667,000 for the quarter. And obviously that's a little drop off from November of last year because you had a larger fund balance and you had a higher average yield. So, but I think, again, overall, just kind of highlighting the fact that the portfolio has and will continue to out yield the Treasury market, and that's a function of what we try to do for our clients like yourself.
What's causing the decline in the yield?
Again, the decline in yield is kind of dictated by the Fed funds rates. As the Fed cuts rates, everything across the curve is following almost in lockstep, and then the Treasury yields have actually gone down even more than the Fed funds rate cuts due to the flight to safety. When the markets start to get fearful, they go into the bond market and they come out of the stock market. But the stock market has been climbing a wall of worry, if you will. It's certainly outperformed most people's expectations, and most people wouldn't have guessed that we would have been hitting record highs this year, as we have done. But yeah, that's pretty much, the trend is it's clear. You look at it graphically speaking, the rates have continued to go lower, and we think that there's still risk that rates go lower before they go higher, if that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions further about the rate environment overall? I think, again, when looking at the average yields, again, of the construction funds, you'll see the rates are slightly higher in certain of the asset categories, and that's just a function of being able to buy a little bit further out the curve and locking in a little bit higher coupon yields. That concludes the presentation for your first quarter investments. If anybody has any more questions, you can hit me up now.
Any additional questions? Is there a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept the quarterly investment report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bennett. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the college's annual quarterly investment report, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Thank you very much. That motion passes. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having me.
And Mr. Garcia will review our quarterly financial report.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so so before we get started on the quarterly financial statements, I do want to share some wonderful news that the college received on Friday. Standard & Poor reported to the college a AA rating on our general obligation bonds, which is a good rating, based in part, and this is what they said, sound financial position with a diverse revenue stream, adequate state support for operations, strong property tax growth, and growing and solid reserves. In addition to that, S&P assessment of our financial management resulted in an improved rating from a standard rating to a good rating. They attribute this improvement rating to the review of our 5-year long-term financial plan, which was presented to the board during last year's budget plan presentation. So this is a wonderful good news to the institution. Okay, so let's move on to the quarterly financial numbers. In short, the financial condition of the college for the 3 months ending November 2019 is sound, with an overall favorable operating results. The state funding of 6.9, let me use this mouth here, 6.9, and the other operating revenues of 25.2 million is sufficient to fund our total operating expenses of 22.9 million dollars. In addition to our operating revenues and expenses are trending relative in line with the planned budget. You may note that the property taxes of 16 million, right here, is trending slightly above prior year's 14.6 million. This is mainly due to the timing of tax collections. This will normalize in the near future. There's also an uptick in certain expense line items due in part to the timing of the purchases. These particular expenses will also normalize in the coming months. In addition, we are experiencing anticipated and normal increases in employee compensation, audit, computer software, and tax appraisal fees. Again, no surprises there. That would be these line items right here. Okay. Maintenance, I saw audit somewhere in here, and fees. Okay. All right. All right, so let's move on to the balance sheet. All right, in short, the college has the financial capacity to continue to support the mission of the college and weather most business interruptions with a cash and investment position of $54 million. That's these two pieces right here. The college's financial resources are sufficient to pay its current obligation. That includes its accounts payable, the college statutory required annual pension and OPEB obligation, and the revenue bond annual debt service payment. Members of the board, Madam Chair and Mr. President, that concludes my presentation of the quarterly financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Are there any questions for Mr. Garcia? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the college's quarterly financial report? Mr. Bennett makes that motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salinas. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of action to accept the college's quarterly financial report, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Next, we have discussion and possible action related to the authorization of funding from the 2014 bond package for West Campus Industrial Pilot Plant expansion and other Workforce Development Center improvements. Mrs. Keys?
Yes. Thank you very much, Regents. And today, August Alfonso and Brian Bennick and Brett Flint are here with us today to present this, as David Davila is presenting our memo. In August?
Yes. Good afternoon. The administration is seeking board authorization for 2 action items directly related to the 2014 bond-funded workforce development construction project. A presentation following will demonstrate and showcase the 2 action items needing board approval to allow for the expansion of the pilot plant facilities and other related additional teaching equipment installations within the new workforce development facilities.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to share with you some of the reasons why we're coming here today and to give you a picture, really, of the type of investment that has been made by our community, the City of Corpus Christi, and investors through an industrial investment. And just to share with you what it looks like as to why there is a need and the great benefit that we've already received. This is, of course, a picture of the new Workforce Development Center over on West Campus. And I'd like to point out that along this back side, right here beyond the building, right here is the existing pilot plant that many of you have already seen, the glycol distillation pilot plant that was provided by Type A funds in 2014-15 of approximately $1.4 million. And that was that pilot plant and an additional control room over here in the Flato building. Since the construction of this new building and then the funds that we're going to show you today, we are building an additional pilot plant expansion that will go right down this rest of this road, cross over here, and continue this throughout here. And I'm going to share with you where those funds are coming from and pictures of the type of equipment so to share with you a little bit of the complexity that comes with the fabrication of this type. Over $5 million in resources has really been provided by the community and industry partners and the City of Corpus Christi in the last 18 months. This picture or drawing right here is the rendering of a ethylene cracker that is going to be built. It's a simulated ethylene cracker, of course. It's nitrogen and water. And this is the type of thing that is being purchased right now and fabricated in Illinois and is coming from Type A funds. $2.34 million was awarded from the City of Corpus Christi through their business incentive Type A funds for us to build this type of equipment in 2018-19. And this is going not just for this ethylene cracker, but for other simulators that will provide training operational skids. It's really light industry in addition to the ethylene cracker. We have invested in the enhanced environmental petrochemical lab that's in the new Workforce Development Center, or an analytical lab. And there's also a second control room that's already in the building. And this provides for the equipment and computers and everything that goes in that. So that when we're done, the equipment will be fully operational through the computerization, just as if you were in a refinery or a petrochemical plant or a chemical plant. This picture is of our students right now on the existing glycol distillation pilot plant that was previously purchased with Type A funds. In last summer, we received $1.5 million from Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, or ExxonMobil SABIC partnership, and that is to fund the equipment that's going into the Gulf Coast Growth Ventures Process Technology Laboratory that is being that's built right now in the Workforce Development Center. This is, many of you were there. This is just the promotional piece that came out. We've also received a donation from Cheniere Energy over the last year. Governor Abbott was here, in fact, when that presentation was made over at their kickoff in their new plant expansion, and that is to provide us the opportunity to build a liquefaction unit, and that's being fabricated right now in Louisiana. Along with, they provided funding actually for us in Suella, which is another community college in Louisiana where they have another facility. So this gives us the opportunity to really, between the glycol distillation pilot plant, an ethylene cracker skid unit, and the liquefaction unit, to meet the needs of really industry that's coming into our region. In addition to that, New Star Energy has donated an existing piece of equipment that's valued at over $1 million. And this is for a pump training unit that exists right now. They built this training unit, or New Star did, and have never used it really for training. They've decided it would be better put to use to donate to us, and our industry partners are going to actually fund the removal of that equipment and installation of that for us. And so this gives you an idea of the type of funds that we've been able to garner in the last year, 18 months, from our local community. This is how the money actually breaks out with what I just went over, to total over $5.3 million in direct funding that we've received. In addition to that, we have in-kind and scholarships that I wouldn't want to discount. And Gulf Coast Growth Ventures right now is over $150,000 in scholarships. Cheniere Energy, I just used $300,000, but really their total commitment is reaching closer to $1 million if you look at what they've done over the last 5 years. They gave one of the first $250,000 donations towards that first skid unit that was built in that control room. Stream Industrial Services is donating their labor to dismantle the New Star unit that's over under the bridge right now and to reinstall it on campus for us. And this is the type of business that Stream is in, and so they will be donating all that labor. Turner Ramirez has donated artwork for the new building. We've not installed that yet, but it's graphics that I think Dr. Escamilla talked about in Gamby this morning, that same type of thing. And then other industrial services have donated their cranes and other labor to help in these movements. So this is now showing some of the pictures, really, of what we're talking about. When I go out to people and I say we're going to build a lab, it's nothing like your traditional visualization of a lab. This is the empty room right now in the Workforce Development Center. That is where the $1.5 million worth of equipment donated by Gulf Coast Growth Ventures will go into. This equipment is being fabricated right now in France, and it will be delivered by ship and installed this summer. And so this summer we'll have another big ceremony, really, a big thank you. But to give you an idea of the complexity of the equipment, this is the second distillation pilot plant that is going into that lab that is being fabricated right now. If you notice, the component parts are all glass, so students will be able to walk around it. This is 18 feet here. This is 14.5 foot tall. And so it will be inside for 24-hour access to our students, basically. We could have morning, noon, and night classes. The faculty are extremely excited. Industry is excited to have this. This replicates to some degree what we already have outside. However, the flexibility of teaching is just extraordinary here. Where we're going to run into some extra cost, and that's one of the reasons we're here to you today, is when we get into installing this equipment, the fabrication is all there. We've paid for the equipment. However, there is extra expense that will come in when they come in to install it. And that's some of the reasons we're asking for a little additional money.
Lenore, aren't some of these components being fabricated
in France?
In France,
yes,
you know,
yes.
Other places, Ohio, France, and it's being all over the world, actually.
It's really all over the world, from Illinois, Louisiana, and France, and then here in Texas. So yes. This is a picture of the liquid extraction trainer unit that will also go in that lab. And then we'll have 2 Bayport processing trainer units that are going in that lab. So when we talk about the size and capacity of equipment, it's quite impressive. This is the picture of the existing second control room that is over in the Workforce Development Center right now. A few years ago, we were donated a piece of software that's called Pi, and it was valued at over $1 million. And that is an analytical software that controls the flow of anything coming in and out of a chemical or industrial processing unit. This control room will operate that software. when we're doing
That
it.
software is not included in this $5 million.
No, it's not. It was 3 years ago, so I didn't include it. This is the new environmental analytical lab that is also second story in the Workforce Development Center. This lab will move from the emerging technology room building right now into this new process, this new unit that will actually increase their capacity and usability tremendously. Part of the Type A funds that I talked about, approximately $2.4 million, has gone into fabricate some of the equipment that goes in here, and also to buy a lot of the equipment that's going into this control room. So we'll have 2 fully functioning control rooms to operate all this when we're done. This just is a diagram that really shows the beginnings. This is from the architecture renderings from Brian Turner Ramirez. Did this for us. This is the existing pilot plant, and here's where we continue down to the pilot plant expansion. This will be the ethylene cracker, LNG unit, and the new STAR unit. This is your building. And again, this is another picture of the rendering. If you notice, this is 2 stories, cement slab on the bottom. This is the second story of the ethylene cracker. There will be a canopy that goes all the way across the top. And this comes from, again, Type A funding from the City of Corpus Christi. This is a picture of the existing glycol distillation pilot plant to give you an idea of the slab and the awning and what we're going to have to build. I'm sorry, getting choked up. And this is Type A, money that purchased the first control room. So that's giving you an example. I'm going to ask Brett to explain this slide for some reason. There you go.
Yeah. On this slide, it just shows that a breakdown of where the funds that are expended and where they're going. Of the 2.34 million in Type A funds, 350,000 of that was allocated towards the construction of the foundation and the awning required for this pilot plant. Right now, that the bid we have for that facility is $742,500. So there is a obvious shortfall there. In addition, there is we're estimating at this point about $75,000 necessary to upgrade what we're calling the GCGV lab in order to install that equipment and operate it. We've had to make some structural improvements in that lab because of the weight of this equipment. Plus, that lab was certainly not anticipated 2 years ago during the design that we would need that type of equipment in there. So there's a fair amount of utility work that needs to be done. We also found out just recently that by tapping into our chilled water system, for the air conditioning there for one of these units, we can actually create another training opportunity for our students in that lab. Although that's a little bit pricey to do that, but it does have benefit down the road. So that's where, down there, the fourth bullet, we're looking for we're about $467,500 needed just for the pilot plant and the associated expansions there. So that's the additional funding for that. Click it. In addition to those, and if you recall, back in June, we came before you with 2 change orders for this project. One was for requirements from the city for a sidewalk and from fire hydrants. Those have been installed. We also had additional funding to cover changes in the building. At that time, we were aware of several of these changes coming. We were not aware of the magnitude of these. So we're still working towards that. We have about, as of today, about $100,000 left on that budget. There's still some pending things that will probably eat up about half of that. We still have some other work to do to accommodate these opportunities we have and some additional opportunities. You saw the picture of the analytical lab. Back when that was designed, it was designed to accommodate some typical equipment. In the meantime, through these funds and through the efforts of the college to get these grant funds, they now have been able to purchase some equipment for that lab, which was nicer than what was anticipated, but that also means it's a little bit bigger, and it's configured differently, so there's some changes required in that analytical lab to accommodate that new equipment. The welding lab, there is some equipment that has become available to our welders, and so we're looking at some modifications and upgrades in the welding lab to improve the instructional capability there. We've also are adding some safety features in some of the areas, eye washes and electrical cutoff switches that are required for accreditation for some of the programs we have over there. Again, these are things that were not anticipated during design. At present, a lot of the scope for these things are still in development. As has been mentioned, some of this equipment is still being built, so we don't have the full scope of what the changes are. But we're guessing that we're somewhere in the range of $600,000 to $650,000 total with the pilot plant and additional funds in order to take advantage of these opportunities we have to improve the instructional capability of that building. As you can see from the picture, it's a nice facility, and I think with the addition of these other things, we're going to have certainly a unique, not only to this area, but to the world opportunity for training here at Del Mar College.
Essentially, Regents, what's happened is the design of the project brought in much attention from our industry partners out there, and so retrofitting in this case, a brand new building, retrofitting a brand new building is kind of a oxymoron, but it's what we're doing because of the generosity of our partners out there, and that's a lot of why that's what's happened here. And they're good problems. There's still headaches and still problems that we have to tackle by doing this, but we're glad to have this opportunity based on the generosity of our partners out there.
Okay, this slide just summarizes the current budget. The original budget for the building was $14,700,000. We have added $685,373 and change orders to that amount. So our current contract value is $15,385,373. Like I said, of that amount, we have about $100,000 left. That's we're not done, so we're still working on that. When the contingency for this project was put together on the bond, and there is contingency funds specifically allocated to the West Campus projects, part of that contingency fund was built up on a 10% contingency for the workforce project. So that would have been $1.47 million in contingency funds. The money we asked for back in June would have come out of that, and that leaves us a balance of $784,627 in contingency that is technically allocated to the Workforce Development Center. We have not touched the escalation and inflation fund in the bond at this point. So, your turn, August.
Thank you, Brett. Staff recommendation. The administration is seeking board authorization for the designation of available 2014 Workforce Development Center project and allocated contingency budget in the amount of $784,627 to be used for the expansion of the pilot plant facilities and the installation of other teaching equipment to improve and expand the workforce development instruction and training capabilities. Action item number 2. The administration is seeking board authorization to award a construction contract in the amount of $742,500 to Victory Construction to construct the proposed pilot plant expansion.
These are two separate items?
Two separate items, yes, sir.
So let's deal with the allocation of the contingency funds first, and then we'll deal with the actual construction the awarding of the construction contract.
I'll make the motion for the 784, Madam Chair.
Mr. Rivas makes the motion, and Dr. Sherwood makes the second to allocate the contingency balance of $784,627 to the workforce, to this expansion. And there's a second. So board comments, questions. Mr. Bennett?
Yes, ma'am. How much was that last change order, the one that had the fire hydrants and the sidewalk?
The fire hydrants and sidewalk change order was 180,000 some odd, and the other one was 500,000 for general construction needs.
Okay, now this is the brand new building, am I correct?
Yes.
Have we taken possession of it yet?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so we just got it, we just built it, now we're changing it.
Well, because the money's,
Additional-
donations came after the design, that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Additional equipment
They gave us
donations.
the donations of the $5 million in those pieces that came after the design. So we had to get it to completion to own it, get everybody out of it. I'm sorry. We had to get occupation of the building so that we can get complete ownership, so that we can move forward with these in a new format, so we weren't stretching out the old contract.
Okay, another question, I sort of understand that.
Well, let me make sure we can understand it completely.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Now, you said it's open, available 24 hours a day. What's the demand for this class?
It will be. It will, by the lab having this equipment inside, it would provide access to teaching needs
So-
that anyone would need it at any point in time.
So 24 hours really is the implication. 24 hours a day refers to the turnaround classes that are offered when we run 24-hour turnarounds in the control rooms when we're running these labs, and they'll run up for 48 hours at a time.
And is there a big demand for it?
Yes, sir.
For process technology, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And what's the beginning salary once they get a graduate certificate?
Well, we have one example I can tell you with the name of the student, the parents in the room right now. 1 year in has made $114,000 on the
First year.
W-2 last year.
First year in with
Yeah.
one of our refineries.
Sounds
114,000.
like a really good investment.
Yes, sir.
It
And
is.
if there's anything I can clarify for you, please.
I think I'm there.
Okay.
I have a question related to the numbers, and although we're going to award the contract in a second, you, on the slide where you talk about the additional funding required for the pilot plant expansion is $467,500, but the actual bid came in significantly higher than that. So can you tell me what else is included in this victory? And I realize we're not there yet, but I want to understand the reconciliation of that 647 versus 742.
The first bullet on that slide that's back up, of the 2.34 million in type A funds, 350,000 of that was allocated towards the pilot plant. So the 467,500 is bond, is the request for bond funds to add to that to take care of the pilot plant expansion and the control room and the expansions in the GCGV lab.
And then you're requesting the full allocation of the contingency, which is about 130,000 more than you need for those additional instructional upgrades on the next slide. Is that correct?
That is correct.
To give you flexibility.
Yes.
So your budget for these items is going to be capped at $130,000.
At whatever
Whatever
left.
their balance is.
And we're pretty confident that we'll be able to get that all done at this point. Like I say, some of the scope is still in development, but we're far enough down the road that we think we've got a pretty good handle on at least the range of costs that we're looking at.
I just wanted to be very clear about, because we just didn't have that kind of reconciliation slide. I just want to be very clear about it. So, any other questions or comments from the board? Is there public comment on this item? And this is, again, only the first motion, which is to allocate the contingency funds. Seeing none, all those in favor of allocating the $784,627 in contingency funds to this expansion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. That motion passes unanimously. Next, we will consider the actual awarding of the contract, which, are you going to review, August, or is Mr. Davila going to review the actual awarding of the contract? Are there questions regarding? He might have gone. So we have a summary.
Yeah, Mr. Davila
There
is
he
here.
is.
Yeah.
There he is.
We forgot to cue him in.
I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of kind Competitive sale proposal 2020-01. It was released on September the 16th, 2019. A pre-proposal conference was held on September the 24th, 2019. Statements of qualifications were received on October the 2nd from two vendors, Small Glass and Victory Team. On October the 8th, only one sealed proposal or a bid was received, and that was from Victory Building Team. On October the 9th, the evaluation process was followed, and scoring of the statement of qualifications that were submitted by the one vendor. At 2 p.m., we paused to do a public bid opening and read out loud the pricing, and only one vendor responded to solicitation that was submitted by both. It was a recommendation at that time to leak legal counsel and to do a price analysis and then make a recommendation.
Thank you.
David, are they a local company, Victory?
They do have a local presence, yes.
Why was there not more interest in this project by contractors? Is this a specialized field, or?
Probably the complexity on that one.
Complexity of the equipment.
No, I think that and we talked to several contractors, and there's just too much. There's so much work in the area right now that people just did not have the capacity, and so there were several companies that did not bid because they did not want to disappoint.
In addition to Mr. Rivas, it's a unique project, and a lot of the contractors not very clear, and they're a little bit scared. They're a little bit timid about going ahead with a project like this. So that's another reason.
This is not straightforward construction per se. This isn't heavy industrial,
Yeah.
petrochem complexities that go with this. So
There was also a phasing, Dr. Escamilla, when the equipment would arrive, that some of these contractors that bid projects this size were a little bit scared of as well, because they'd have to keep the contract open and keep themselves going for that amount of time in order to phase the concrete and the foundations, in order for, because the way that we have this planned is you pour your foundations, your equipment will have to be delivered and installed, and then you'll have to place your canopy above on top of the equipment, because there are certain openings that have to be customized for this equipment itself. So that kind of scared some people off as well.
Our price estimators agreed on the price, that we're getting a reasonable price.
We have reviewed these with our engineers, and we had made certain that the quality is there. The college is still getting the quality that they've asked of us, and the pricing is within range. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to award the construction contract as recommended by staff? Motion by Ms. Averett, second by Mr. Rivas. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Did you get your drink of water, Ms. Keys? Because
Yeah,
the
thank
next
you.
one is
I'm
going to be a long one, too.
I'm going to grab another cough drop. I'm sorry about my allergies have kicked in.
That's quite all right. I'm going to give Dr. Escamilla a chance to introduce this next item, and then I think Ms. Keys and Mr. Rivera will walk us through this next item, which is related to the discussion and possible action related to the tax increment reinvestment zone number 4, North Beach.
Thank you, Madam.
Madam Chair, before we begin, I'm going to abstain from discussion and voting on this matter due to a potential conflict of interest.
Thank you very much, Ms. Averett.
Madam Chair, I also have interests out at North Beach, so I will step out of the room.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Strada.
I like to go to North Beach, does that count?
No, sir.
What? I like to go to North Beach.
Dr. Escamilla, you want to introduce them?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, ladies and gentlemen, the tax increment reinvestment zone 4 is here before you after much diligence that the administration has put forth. As you'll recall, this past fall, we worked in earnest to prepare an application process, redevelop a policy so that we could onboard any future TERS types of endeavors from the various entities. We, as you recall, earlier in the fall, we passed that policy, and this is our first TERS to incorporate and utilize our policy. I'm pleased to say that the city staff that has worked with us, can you come on up? Can you come on up early? has worked with us and has done an exceptional job with their due diligence and preparation of this very complex yet straightforward approach for the tax increment refinance zone. Again, from our standpoint, heretofore the college in the past 20 years has taken part in 3 other TERS programs, various lengths, and we have representatives here on the board for those, and we used to have some administrators represent us, and so we have a long-standing history in participating with the TERS. That being said, this is everyone that comes forward is very unique, and we appreciate your consideration for the TERS 4 located on, as Regent Rivas was saying, North Beach. Just want to thank great partners with the city. Thank you for your diligence. It was fantastic working with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Arlene. Yes, in fact, thank you, Dr. Escamilla. Arlene Medrano with the staff of with the City of Corpus Christi has worked diligently. In fact, we are approaching this as a part of our strategic plan, and I was very pleased to see our new plan and vision up, as I want to point out. And as it comes under Goal 5, which is Workforce Development, Community Partnerships, and Advocacy. And so as we look to our strategic plan and we look to what the community is doing here in our partnerships with the City of Corpus Christi, I would like to share with you how this could roll together and how we are the recommendation from the college. Really what we're going to look at first of all is an overview of the TERS policy, which you passed last fall, and general information. We're going to have information specifically on TERS 4, which is North Beach. We do have a formal request from the City of Corpus Christi to participate. We're going to look at how the TERS number 4 would impact the college financially and through our culture and opportunity for our students. And we will have a recommendation from administration to participate in TERS 4 as aligned within our policy, our Del Mar College policy that was recently passed. In looking at a TERS, it does come under Tax Code Chapter 311 of the Texas Tax Code. And also, it defines what a reinvestment zone is. And a reinvestment zone is also reviewed within our own board policy, Board B4.3.7. And I have to admit, Arlene did a fabulous job of putting together the city materials all in alignment with our board policy. If you remember, our policy is very specific and detailed. And the presentation of all the materials we received addressed point by point our policy. And this is something that we've met with and went through and made sure that the information was there as best as possible to address what has been expected within our own policy. Just to give you a picture of where we're coming from, we have participated in the past in 3 TERS. This is an overview of the 3 existing TERS that began in 1983 was the first one, which had to do with North Beach, I believe, when they started the aquarium and gave us some value in there, and it's already ended. TERS number 2 was 2001 to 2010 for Packery Channel, and it's the first one that really had a staggered valuation or incentive of contribution that went from 80% all the way down to 0% over a 10-year period. And of course, and I believe, Mr. Rivas, you participate on TERS 2. You were our representative there. And then TERS 3 is still ongoing. It started in 2008. It was reaffirmed in 2012 and goes to 2028. And it's at 100% for those 20 years, really. And it's continuing
Susan,
right now.
I believe Susan Hutchinson is on there.
And yes, and Regent Hutchinson is our representative on TERS 3 right now for the downtown development area. This proposed participation in TERS 4, I was going to give you an overview of what it would entail. TERS 4 North Beach was created by the city and county last fall. North Beach includes approximately 1,423 acres. 454.5 acres are land and approximately 968 are within the water. And the purpose is to promote development by supporting public infrastructure improvements, maintenance projects, and development incentives. And for an area or region to be declared a TERS, it must be depressed in some manner. And this area meets those requirements and meets the purpose for which this has been created. This is a map showing a reference, and this actually addresses our policy as to does Del Mar College have anything within the TERS 4? And no, we do not. We do not have a site there yet, or do not have a site there. The upper corner right here, of course, is North Beach. And then these are our 3 primary locations, even with the Center of Economic Development and, of course, Southside over here. This is a rendering of the TERS 4 boundary as it relates to North Beach and the part of the bay in which it includes. Within the TERS 4, I believe it's important that we look at the impact of the total impact that this would have on our community and our students in the college. And one of the primary areas is to look at what exists down there right now and the properties and functions that exist within the zone. Of course, first of all, we want to recognize the Texas State Aquarium. When we look at our policy, we look to see how does it benefit the total economy, economic development, and educational opportunities. The Texas State Aquarium has invested over $110 million in facilities and employs over 774 people. They have a renowned marine conservation program. There are award-winning STEM and excellence programs in education, and they have a comprehensive wildlife rescue and recovery programs. So the opportunity there and the commitment and the contribution really that the Texas State Aquarium makes to this community and indirectly to our students and families is quite significant. In addition to this Texas State Aquarium, located in TERS 4 is the USS Lexington. I know many of you've all been there and fully appreciate what the Lexington brings to us. I got a little piece of their mission, and it's not exact wording, so I asked for their forgiveness on this, but I think it felt like it addressed the overall commitment and purpose. It says, mission to maintain an educational museum focusing on naval aviation and national defense. They have over 300 visitors annually, and they directly support CCISD educational programs and Scout and youth programs, first responder training, military events, and they're a historical museum, which all tie to what we do here at Del Mar College through our students and families. In addition to those 2 really highlights for Corpus Christi and our community, we can't forget the new bridge that's going in. And I realize the picture I found includes the baseball park. It does not. It's not over in TERS 4, but the bridge is. And that's a $1 billion project that, of course, is under construction right now. There's limited new multifamily and single-family development going on in the TERS area within the zone. However, if you've gone to Portland anytime recently, you'll notice on the left, just before you get to the causeway, there is La Vista Point upscale development going on, and that's valued at $24 million, and they broke ground on that, and that's under construction right now. And that's the first real new large development that's gone on in this area in a long time. So that gives you an idea as to what's going on right now within that zone. Of course, the picture of the beach there. This is another rendering, came from urban engineering, I believe, as to the exact layout of the land itself, of the 1,400 acres. There's actually 410 parcels of land, and we do have a listing of every taxpayer, thanks to Arlene. And what's significant as we move forward in looking at the financial impact is the way the TERS is constructed. There's a base property tax year, and the base property tax year, what we're proposing is for 2019. And in 2019, Del Mar College collected $294,605. So that would become our proposed base tax year. Also within this TERS plan is the tax incentives are on a reimbursement basis. What that means is that a taxpayer, if a taxpayer or a developer were to receive an incentive, they pay their taxes first on whatever the valuation of the property is. We would get our portion of that tax base guaranteed every year. And then on top of it, that might be reimbursed as an incentive back to the developer. And when I show you the numbers, I think that'll begin to make more sense. But that's what the term reimbursed tax above the tax base means. and how it would be applied. We're also using a common value of $104,512,349,000 as the taxable value moving forward for our analysis. This was the number through Arlene's work that the city and county used, and so we're using the same numbers to project from, because when you look at a TERS and the economic development, it's truly a projection with certain assumptions. And so we're using the same numbers and the same values for the appraised value. Now, the city of Corpus Christi has already voted in their TERS, and they are participating at 100% for 10 years and 75% for the next 10 years. Nueces County's participation is at 100% for 20 years. The TERS board has already been created and they've met, and the top portion of this slide shows the requirements or conditions for the board, and this is set out by the city council, and the board composition, primarily made up of the 9 members of the city council and the mayor, 2 Nueces County appointees, including Barbara Canales and Carolyn Vaughn. Barbara Canales is vice chair, and I did want to point out that Everett Roy has been elected chair of this board. 1 representative from the Texas State Aquarium, 1 representative from the Lexington, who's Steve Banta, and 1 appointed, if you so choose, from Del Mar College, and 1 community member who is Carrie Meyer. So the TERS board is comprised of this group. In the proposal that we received, there are multiple studies, but the 2 I wanted to point out, 1 is by Urban Engineering, and it was done in August of 2019, and a full economic feasibility study by Dr. Jim Johnson, and his company is known Landmark Renewal. And both of these were prepared in August of 2019. There are some assumptions that come out of the feasibility study as to how we project forward and how they project the taxable growth within that zone. Fundamentally, and we found this number, we use it internally too, is the 3% annual growth rate in property taxes, which is a very standardized rate. Also within his assumptions is that the La Vista Point, which I previously showed you, that complex would be completed by year 2022 and go on the tax rolls at $24 million. Also, then beginning in 2024, that new residential development would include 22 new apartments units valued at $150,000 each, and 12 new condominium or townhouses valued at $300,000 each. And that would continue annually. These are in the assumptions. There is other investment that is projected down there, and that has been, people have come forward and said, well, if you do this, then we will invest. And so some of those dollars are included in the analysis that we received. And within a proposal, we received the general functions of the zone and what the purpose, the financial plan would be like as far as the areas or which the funds would be invested. First of all, of course, is infrastructure, which would include wayfinding, park improvements, demolition of blighted structures, drainage and residential streets, maintenance projects for public spaces, beautification and revitalization, development incentives, which is project-specific development agreements, and property improvement program and living initiatives. Those are 3 parts, really, by which developers would come in through side agreements, be presented to the board, and then could be awarded incentives. And then the administrative cost for the zone for managing the funds would go to the city of Corpus Christi for the creation of the zone, and then for annual administration for accounting and legal work. Okay. No, yeah, okay. The estimated costs that we received, now these are without the Del Mar contributions. This would be the city and county, because these are the numbers we have going forward at this point, would be approximately $32 million plus another $2 million would make this portion about $34 million from the city and the county that would go particularly into over a 20-year period, plus whatever Del Mar decides to do. And then I have a correction on the TERS board awarded, in that the award went to the Fraser hotel instead of La Vista Point. Mr. Frazier and Jeff Blackard are partners, and both items were listed. However, I want to make that correction, that the $2.8 million incentive that the board has already awarded goes to the Frazier Hotel and not La Vista Point.
7.8.
7 point, did I say 2.8? Thank you. 7.8. Yeah, that port's, yes, correct. Okay, so that's where we stand to this point. When you look at Del Mar College and how this could impact Del Mar College mission through economic development and our students and student programs, when you look at what's going on down in the North Beach area right now, through expansion of the aquarium, the Lexington, and then increased hotel, motel, restaurants, retail business, that directly ties to several of our programs here at Del Mar College where our students could benefit. Particularly in construction. You've seen where our construction program is growing, and students would be available for those jobs. Our culinary arts, of course, is expanding, and we're very excited about what all we're doing with culinary arts. Hospitality management is a long-time program that's very successful, and that could go into your hotel, motel, condominium, townhouse type management for students. Our management and supervision programs, accounting, real estate sales, computer science, there's many more that I could list, but whenever you have this type of business growth, it would tie directly to many of our programs. So just as a recap before I get into more of the dollars, I wanted to go back and remember or reconfirm that we're looking at a beginning tax basis of $104,512,349 taxable valuations. That it would be based upon our 2019 tax revenue, which is $294,605. And just as a marker, if we just stay at that flat rate, that's a little over $2.9 million over the next 10 years that we would collect if nothing's done. And I realize this may be a little bit hard to see, however it is in everyone's packet. And what we're looking at here is contributions for the first 10 years. I've split this out into 2 slides for your reference to make it a little bit easier to see. In that, when we talk about moving forward, we have the base property values. For all of our examples, we've used the existing tax rate. We've not changed the tax rate. We have gone ahead and shown the tax revenue for 2019. And then if you increase at just 3% every year compounding, that's what this column would be. And then the projected property values if the TERS 4 goes into existence and develops as planned. The projected tax revenue total dollars over a 10-year period to Del Mar College would be $5.7 million. However, remember we're keeping the base for 2019. This is not showing us contributing for the year 2019. This is moving forward to 2020, assuming the same base because that is the known tax base and the known dollars that were collected. And then over and above, 303,000 minus the 294, then that would make available for reinvestment to the TERS $8,838 in the next year at 100% of the incentive. So 100% of anything over this tax basis would go into the incentive pool. So that's how this entire table works. And we're showing this at 100% for 9 years because the first year has already come and gone. Okay, questions on this? And so what this means is that by the end of 10 years at this flat rate, or 9 collections, I'm just showing 9, $2.6 million would come to Del Mar with a possible $2.8 million going contributions into the TERS at the end of the 9-year period. As we move forward to the next 10 years, everything else stays the same column-wise. But however, when we move over to the percent going to the TERS, what we're recommending is that we go to 75%, which is what the city of Corpus Christi did. So if you take the increased revenue, first it's $900,000 in the year 2029. The first $294,000 comes to Del Mar. Then you have a projected amount over and above the base of $606,000. 75% is $454,000 going into the TERS as a contribution. However, we would retain 25%. So the 151 would come to Del Mar plus the 294. The end of the next 11 to 20 years, another $6.5 million would go into the TERS. Del Mar would collect another $2.9 million plus $2.178 million. So your total over a 20-year period is that within the base that we will continue to collect, we collect $5.597 million. We collect an additional $2.178 million for our 25%, and we will have paid in $9.3 million. Questions at this point? Let me go to my next slide. So what this means is they're projecting total property values to go over $519 million in the next 20 years, or next 19 years actually. At the end of that time period, our annual tax valuation for Del Mar College would go from $294,000 to $1.46 million. By the year 22, total taxes received would be over $10 million for Del Mar College. I'm going to back up a slide. We will have contributed a possible $9.3 million by year 20. And I used this number, keeping it static, the $1.4 million, without it increasing. In another 2 years after the end of the TERS, we would be at over $10 million, $10.7 million.
On that slide, I can say that that's pretty accurate, because on the island, when we started the TERS 2 on Peccary Channel, the taxable value was a little bit under 100 million, and in 2019 it almost hit 500 million.
Very good.
So that's what it did on the island.
Thank you. So if we do nothing and we sit back and somehow collected the $17 million in projected revenue, I have calculated out that, and it continues on, by year 2044, which seems like a long way from here, but it's only 6 years after the TERS, okay? It's $17.4 million to Del Mar College. So we will have collected over and above the total amount that would be generated. So recommendations by administration are the following: that we participate in the TERS number 4 at 100% for 9 years and 75% for the remaining 10 years. Incentives are to be paid on a taxable reimbursement basis above the base taxes collected in 2019. And we recommend that the Board of Regents appoint a representative to the TERS board.
That'd be all one motion? No, separate motions.
We have it broken up in two. Really, the bullets 1, 2, the first 3 and the last could be in one motion, and then the fourth bullet proposed, do I have that right, Moggy? And the fourth one would be the TERS board representative would be a separate motion.
We have a suggested language if we get to that point on how to organize that. So let's hold off on a motion yet.
Yes, no, I know, I'm just
And yes, have some questions and comments first. Mr. Bennett?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't see a school district in here. Why is there no school district?
They're exempt.
They do not participate.
That's why there's not there.
Yeah, that's right.
We're separate.
Yeah, they have chapter 312s where we have chapter 311. Possibly.
Other questions, comments? I do want to thank Ms. Medrano and the city staff for for putting together the presentation. We all had an opportunity to either look at it electronically or to see to come in and look at the detailed information that was provided. And so I appreciate the work that y'all did in working with our staff, and kudos to Ms. Keys and Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera, Dr. Escamilla for all putting it together as well.
Working with Lenora Keys on this one, with her leadership, we all followed suit, and again, working with city staff, we continue to have that great partnership with our city, and it's been an honor to work with them.
Good. So to sum up, so we've received this request from the city, and the staff has made their recommendation clear that Del Mar College participate in the tours, number 4, at a rate of 100% for 9 years and 75% for the remaining 10 years, and that the board further authorize administration to enter into an appropriate interlocal agreement with the city of Corpus Christi consistent with those terms. If that feels like the will of the board, then I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Chair, I'd like to be the one to make the motion because that's my district.
Okay.
And they've been pushing me for a while to try to get this going.
Okay. Well, with that prerogative, I will allow that. Mr. Rivas makes that motion, and Mr. Adami seconds that. Any other questions or comments related to that motion? Is there any public comment related to this action item? Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Adame?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Ms. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Rivas?
Yes.
Mr. Salinas?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Dr. Sherwood? Yes.
So that motion carries unanimously. And please note the 2 abstentions as well. And regarding the motion for appointment from the TERS board, as Mr. Rivas said earlier, he represents us on the Packery Channel board, and Ms. Hutchison represents us on the downtown board. And if the boards would so indulge me, yes, sir.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to appoint our chairman,
Our chair.
Carol Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas.
To sit on that board.
I'd be happy to do that. Is there any other interest in serving on that board? Is there a second to that motion? Jump on that one real fast because whoever doesn't do it. Mr. Rivas, would you conduct that vote, please?
Oh, yes. All those in favor of the motion of appointing Carol to that board, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Well, thank you very much, and again, thank you for the time spent on doing this.
Thank you,
Good
board.
job.
I just want to say thank y'all very much, and thank you again to Arlene Medrano and the city staff, and Amy, our attorney, the attorney for the city, for being here. It's been tremendous
Thank
work
you.
together.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Moving on, let's move on to our discussion of the new Bachelor of Science degree in nursing. And Dr. Escamilla, would you introduce that one as well, please?
Yes, as we're getting ready for the presentation, Madam Chair, this is our opportunity to come back and make a major impact on the health care of our community. We came to you in the fall, and we've learned a lot with our first presentation on this most important initiative. Faculty, if I can get you to come on up, and whoever else is going to be part of this presentation. I think Mr. Johnson and Roll will be back there as well. There's a lot of history that comes with. John, you gonna be shy?
Ask me.
Come on, John. You can be shy tomorrow. We can. So there's a lot of history that comes forth, and you know, when we reviewed our data and the information for this really does go back several years with the preparation from the nursing department. And again, we have a tremendous program that has been operating for generations now, a preparation of nurses, and now being able to take it to a level change and the next level, and offer this sort of instruction with much of that budget much of those operations within the existing budget is a tremendous win. So with the steps taken by the nursing faculty in preparation for with their credentials and their expertise, with the support from the Texas legislature to support bachelor's, BSN programs, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, 4 two-year colleges across the state was a tremendous vote of confidence, which was a tremendous and also a tremendous affirmation of the need for more nurses than ever. I don't know anybody who can argue that. But that being said, this team who's here and everybody sitting down, I assure you, we're all in this, and we've all touched on this from various aspects. Has again that deep history that goes way back over the past decade in preparation for today's proposal for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Dr. Escamilla and Board of Regents. We're very pleased today to bring forward the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, which would be first thing for Del Mar College and something we'd be very proud of. We were able to meet over the last month, Vanjie and Jennifer and I, and with John's help and Raul's help and everybody's help, we've been able to review what was presented in the past, and you're going to see some changes today, and I think you'll find them very favorable. Right now, the nursing department, I thought that dash was in the wrong place when I first saw it. 95 to 100 students every fall and spring semester. That means we have over 1,600 students that presently declare themselves to be nursing majors. Now, 385 students are presently enrolled in the program. That means that there's great demand and great intent and desire within our student population to become nurses, but the level of, to be able to reach that level takes a lot of work on our students. The nursing students have actually been surveyed, and your faculty and staff did a great job of surveying our students, and then also asking professionally from others what would be needed. Over almost 90% of our, 96% of our currently enrolled students said that they would consider the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. And I think you see the benefits that are here on the screen, the short-term and the long-term benefits. Long-term, I think, is the biggest impact in that your hospitals regionally and nationally are preferring bachelor's degree nursing. There's been such a shortage that they could not require it. So this is where the industry is going, and also for job advancement, job security, and just increased opportunities to advance within the nursing field. The bachelor's degree is needed. The associate's degree is very much in demand today that we already offer, and nothing that we're proposing today would impact that. This would build upon what we're already doing with our associates in applied science and nursing to RN. This is showing what is actually required or asked for by our nursing executives who, this is a professional association that were surveyed, and they said that they definitely prefer the bachelor's degree when possible, that they would hire as many as possible. However, the demand has just been greater than we could meet. We did pull some data as it pertains here to Nueces County, and by 2029 the demand for nurses just in Nueces County is going to increase by 21%. We also know that there will be over 4,400 positions in nursing by 2029 in Nueces County, and over 25% of those who are working today are at or above retirement age. So when you factor that in, that just reinforces the need for nurses within our community. Adding the Bachelor's of Nursing, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing will not negatively impact the Associates in Applied Science. We're going to show how this program is built upon itself and how it will enhance the opportunity for our associate degree nurses. This slide right here is showing the community colleges across the state that have been awarded or approved to the degree in bachelor's, and there are other community colleges. Traditionally, community colleges were held in an associate's degree, but what you're seeing across the state is a trend in specific areas such as nursing, where they're being granted authority by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and through SACS COC the credentials that it takes to have a bachelor's degree. And so you see just really in the last year, these other community colleges have received this, the go-ahead, the approval. Also want to point out the projected enrollment that they're projecting in 5 years, because we're going to show our numbers I think are conservative. I think you're going to see that all of our numbers in projected enrollment and costs and revenue are going to be conservative. But this is a very good benchmark as we look at what's going on across the state. Right now, we have great resources and tremendous faculty who are more than qualified to teach at the bachelor's degree. We have 25 faculty members, full-time faculty members in nursing. 2 of our administrators, our ladies right here, both have PhDs. We have 8 other faculty members who hold doctorate degrees and 5 who are currently pursuing the doctorate degree. I know I've witnessed and been very pleased over the last few years to see them come forward as they receive their doctorate and be recognized by the board. And I think it's very unique and special for Del Mar to have this many people with a doctorate degree in faculty. So this is tremendous for us. We also presently have the existing classrooms and labs that are needed for the bachelor's degree. We have the clinical relationships out in the hospital and community to whatever is needed. So we do not see an added need for extensive lab renovation or addition in those areas to add this bachelor's degree. Now presently, the way the degree program will work is that you presently have an associate in applied science to registered nurse degree. And our students pass right now at about 93% pass rate. Very proud of that. And it's been a very high rate for the last several years. Right now, the associates in applied science degree takes 64 credit hours. So a student completing that associates in applied science degree would still take that same degree plan. They could test and get the registered nurse license. They could go to work at that time if they wanted to. What a great benefit. And then they could continue with their Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. To complete a bachelor's degree in the state of Texas, it's very standard that it requires 120 hours. And so what we're showing here is how that 120 hours would be reached. They would take the first 64 hours within their associate's and applied science degree. This 64. Then there's approximately 26 credit hours less that make up either the Common Core curriculum or degree requirements within the bachelor's degree that would be needed over and above the nursing hours of 30 credit hours. So you take the 64 that we'd probably have that they would have going into the bachelor's degree, another 56 hours to equal the total of 126 hours, 120 credit hours. It's a building block process that our students could take while being registered nurses if they pass that test, and they probably would. The odds are great. Could work and advance into bachelor's degrees. This is showing a projection of students. Our faculty and administrators believe that we could easily start with 30 students, probably out of the graduating class that we have right now. Each year just increasing slowly. Year 2 an additional 40, year 3 an additional 60, year 4 an additional 70, year 5 90, for a cumulative total of right under 300 students over a 5-year period would come in for their bachelor's degree. And from what we were showing on the other community colleges, I believe this to be a conservative number. I really, we believe it would be greater. But everything you're going to see today is conservative.
Quick clarification, you said earlier that there are 100 students per semester enrolling right now for the associates in nursing. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
per semester.
Per semester. Thank you.
And I hope you can see this better up close. What we're projecting here, we wanted to look at direct revenue for that 30 hours of nursing. Okay, when I call it direct, it's for the 30 additional hours in nursing that the students would have to take. So the state funding, we're skipping the first year because depending upon when this is approved, since we're paid on a biennium, we wanted to be conservative and say, well, we may not get any state reimbursement that first year depending on when this goes into effect. So we left off any state funding at this rate. The second year, that 30 semester hours for those students would generate about right over $87,000 in state reimbursement. You can see out to year 5, those 4 years would pay over $439,000. Just tuition and fees, and using the same tuition and fee rate we have today. The first year they would pay. They would take 30 hours that first year, $95,000 in tuition and fees, carries on out to year 5 to a $988,000 for a total over that 5-year period of $1.4 million collected directly from those 30 hours of nursing for that same student count as we projected growing. Okay.
30 hours
of nursing
every year?
every year. So, okay.
So 15 each semester.
15, it'd probably go over 12-month term.
And
Yeah,
what-
so there would be some in the summer.
Why just the extra 30 years for the nursing? Because aren't they, did
I'm
I
gonna-
understand? Oh,
I'm going to show you that money in
Patience.
just
I'll
a
be
sec. But you're right on. We're using 30 for the first year because that's usually a full-time student. Is 15 and 15 or 12 and 12 and then the summer. And so we wanted to be conservative and show if a student could only take that many hours in a year. And so that's just showing the 30. And then the group looked real hard and looked at the expenses and how much it would really cost to get this going and to sustain it. What you're seeing here does not include an additional administrator. Our 2 administrators here have stepped up and said they can handle it. And so we do not see the need for another additional dedicated single administrator. However, we would hire one faculty member in year 1. The same faculty member would get a small raise in year 2, hopefully. By the 3rd year, we've added a second full-time. Year 4, we still have 2. In year 5, we're projecting going to 4. Now, anytime we would add a full-time faculty member, that would be justified and based upon enrollment, and that would have to be approved by total enrollment. What's difficult to project as far as class load is that the clinicals in this program are 1 to 10, meaning, it's 10 students to 1 faculty member. Now, in the lecture, there's more like 25 to 30. So with the existing doctoral level faculty that we have, we feel like this could easily be balanced with this type of faculty. And anytime we added faculty members, particularly out to the 5th year, if we go for 4 people, that would be justified at that point in time and approved by administration at that time. But we're being conservative again and showing you the most expensive we think it would be. Okay. Clerical costs are added in, fringe benefits at 30% of salaries, supplies and materials across the board, and your library instructional fees. And those are at base rates, and John was extremely helpful in looking up these, and these are actual projected numbers here. So what we're showing is, again, this is only the direct revenue and direct expenses for that 30 hours of the nursing. Would be 1.566 expenses over a 5-year period. So the net loss over a 5-year period to be projected to be about $138,000. As I move forward, I want to call everyone's attention to remember the 26 hours that were still left of enrollment, right? What we're showing here is the state funding that would be generated by that additional 26 hours. Those courses are predominantly Common Core curriculum. 6 hours of history, 6 hours of government. Those types of courses that are more lecture, equated hours, lecture hours. If we're adding an additional 30 students the first year, 40, 50, 60, out to 90, it's our rationale that those students could predominantly be absorbed by existing Common Core classes and 2 or 3 students in a class. However, to be careful, we went ahead and added some adjunct salaries just in case it did throw us over into some added sections later on. But I do want to show the revenues that would come in. The state revenue, we didn't show any for the first year because they're taking 30 hours in full time, okay? That student, theoretically, then the student who took 30 hours the first year could take the 26 additional hours the second year. And so that's when we would start generating funding for that additional 26 credit hours. So your state funding would be $42,000, your tuition and fees $130,000, $173,000 of direct revenue created from those courses. When you go out to the cumulative totals at the end of the 5-year period, excluding the first year, so it's only 4 years of revenue, we're at over $1 million in revenue in just tuition and fees, and including some expenses if we need some adjunct faculty for increased section or 2 in government or history, that type of more of a lecture course. So when you put all of this together, the direct revenue for the nursing courses was $1.4 million. The direct expenses for the nursing courses was $1.56 million. We were showing a net loss over a 5-year period of $138,000. When you add back in the net revenue for the additional 26 hours of $1 million, over a 5-year period, your net difference is right over $900,000 out of tuition and fees and state reimbursement. Based upon that, we want to let y'all know too, the great news is the Texas Board of Nursing has approved this 4-year degree for our nursing program, our nursing faculty. That was a lot of work. Congratulations. The next steps, pending approval from our Board of Regents, would be Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board would have to approve this, and we would send in a substantive change to the SAC COC, because this would move the college from only offering associate's degree to being very proud of offering a bachelor's degree.
Level change.
Level change.
Yes.
And we're projecting then, because of the types of approvals that would come after this, that the implementation date would probably be in 2021, probably another year for all those approvals. This is the timeline that they showed last time, and we have modified it to show completed Texas Board of Nursing approval, and then also the timeline past 2021, or as soon as possible, as soon as we receive approval from the other bodies. And so today, we're asking for your consideration. Any questions or discussion?
First of all, thank you very much for the additional work. The initial body of work, we know that the content is there, and we have great faith in what you all are doing as faculty, and so thank you. And thank you for the additional work as well. We appreciate all the time and effort that went into that. Are there questions from board members? Mr. Bennett.
How much does a RN with an AA degree make?
The average salary entering from our, I ran all the salaries and the data on our statistical analysis that we have for the Texas Workforce Commission. And in Nueces County, they start at approximately $71,000.
And how much does a BSN make?
I don't know the difference. They start about the same. The starting salary is about the same.
Salary is about the same.
Okay, so we're taking a student that makes minimum wage to $10 an hour, and we're converting them to a $71,000 employee. Okay, so that's a really good thing. So at that point, they can afford to pay for an RN or a BSN degree anywhere they want to go. So what we're doing is over these 5 years, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying we're going to have 290 students over the first 5 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's 58 per year average. Is that
Yes.
right? And we're going to have to invest $1.566 million to attain that. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's $27,000 per student. We're currently paying $18,000 per every full-time student equivalent. This is an additional $27,000 for each student. So if we have a history student come in, the incremental cost of a history student is $0. The incremental cost of a BSN nursing student is $27,000. Del Mar cannot afford to pay $27,000 for each additional student.
Well, sir, I don't follow the math really because of the total contact
part of
hours. Well, because you're not taking into consideration the revenue that is generated and the impact it has for our students
The
and their
revenue
earning power.
generated for a history student is the same revenue generated for a BSN nursing student.
No,
They're-
sir. The contact hour reimbursement rate is different.
If they're here for 15 hours, how much difference is there?
John?
Somebody going through the BSN program, the contact reimbursement rate is $4.29 per contact hour. For a history student, you're talking about $2.54 per contact hour.
So how much different
Reimbursement
per
rate.
student would that be?
Double.
It's almost double.
Okay, double how much?
Well, you're $4.29 per contact hour for the 30 hours they're taking per contact hour.
So we're talking about another $100 and
So
some
you're-
dollars?
have to do all the math.
And I'm not trying to
I mean,
put you on the spot.
But, I mean, you're doubling your contact hour rate from 254 to 429, almost doubling.
But the fact is, it's costing $27,000 per additional student to have this program over the first 5 years.
No, sir.
You would have to show me that math that you're I don't
Okay,
understand
take the
math that you're using.
1.566 million and divide it by 58 students.
What about the?
That's, you're taking the average number of students over the total cost. That doesn't compute.
Without
It- No, the tuition's gonna be the same. The reimbursement might be different, but it's only minor.
But if you go back to the summary slide, the summary of the projected revenues. Go, one more. Right there. So yes, there's a direct cost, but the indirect revenue, so we're actually making money off of this program. We're gonna make over a 5-year period, $924,000.
And it's incremental. How much would we make if it was a history student in 15 hours? The tuition's the same.
The tuition is the same, the state reimbursement is not.
Is different by a little bit. The cost is $1.566 million different. So we get 58 students, average, over 5 years. We invest $1.566 million. If we get 58 students in history and English, our additional cost is zero.
I disagree with that. I mean, you've still got to have more faculty. I mean, there's
Not
at
for
some
58
point.
students.
Well,
We're only getting 58 students here.
Oh, you know,
No, so we're getting 290 students.
Divided by 5 years, what's the average?
It does, the average, you're taking the
It's
total
cumulative.
dollars of cost, but you're only taking the average number of students. If you
Average
take the total number of cost, you have to take the total number of students.
The average
have to go total to
enrollment,
total.
I'm trying to compare the average enrollment for a current curriculum student to the cost of this one. Current curriculum student's not gonna cost anything. We get 58 students in here every year for the next 5 years. It's 290 students over that period. Is that correct?
It could
That's
be,
about right.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
that's about
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the cost? Zero.
Well, but I think what we're talking about here, and I appreciate what you're saying about trying to equate this to numbers. However, what we're equating it to is meeting the needs of the community and the demand that is needed by the community and elevating people's ability to have a career in the technical program, to become a bachelor's degree and have a long career track. So this is truly a program where someone can improve their lives and improve our community versus someone who's just taking a history class. There's nothing wrong with taking a history class, that's great, but that doesn't lead to a sequence of a career in itself. So we're
And-
taking a whole sequence of courses here that prepares someone for a meaningful career.
And
I think
what-
that's the difference.
And what if we double the amount of AA graduates that we have? Wouldn't that help moving twice as many students that make $10 or $12 an hour to a $71,000 beginning salary?
If the job market was there, however, we're showing that the
We should
job
do
market
both.
is there for nursing.
Well, we
We're
could do
not
that
trying
too,
not to
though.
do
And
it.
then you expand the clinicals on top of that, which is a very, very expensive part. Those first 2 years of the RN part is the very, very expensive part. A lot of what we're doing here on the add-on does not require much in the way of infrastructure or those sorts of things with the existing. We're using, that's what I was talking about earlier in my explanation of everything. We're using much of what's already invested in the way of faculty and infrastructure.
We are, but then we have to spend $1.566 million.
So this program, again, when we talked about the expansion of this program, the other colleges that are doing this for the overall greater good and health of this. There's nothing more important than taking care of the health of our communities. That's what the community colleges are doing. That's what we're doing with this initiative. The numbers are still there. I'm still not following completely what you're saying, but with the numbers, I understand that to some degree. But when we're looking at the amount of money we already have invested and leveraging the dollars that we already have invested with the faculty and staff, the leadership, the facilities that were invested in that 2003 bond, the infrastructure that's already there, it's a it's a great investment and vast improvement to the service of our health, again, which is the most important thing any community can do from our perspective.
And I understand that, but I would argue that it's more important to service the poor people that are making $10 or $12 an hour. Give them the chance to make $71,000, and then they can afford to go to Arlington, UT Arlington, or they can afford to go out to the island. When they're making.
This doesn't take the place of doing that. I mean, if we get those 58 students, am I right, who just want that associate's degree, we'll take them too. I mean, this isn't, there's no lost.
We will, but it won't cost us $1.566 million.
No, that's great. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll
Well,
do that. But
and-
so this is a separate. I don't see an either or.
There's not an either or, but the question is, do you want to spend $27,000 for each of the average 58 student increase over the first 5 years?
Your math is incorrect, 'cause either you take the 1.5 over 5 years divided by 290, which is a little over $5,000 per student, or you average out your 1.566 million divided by 5 years divided by 58. So either you have to do one way or the other, Mr. Bennett. You can't just take the 1.5 and then take an average per year student. You take a 1.5 and divide it by 290, and you're going to get a little bit over 5,300 per student.
But your increase in students for the year will be 58.
My point
over
is,
the 5 years.
per student, if you want to talk per student, it's 5,300.
And-
Apples to apples divided, my simple Bishop multiplication and division
okay,
class.
our cost per student right now is almost 18,000. If we increase by 58, we've got to invest 1.566 million. That's 27,000.
We're not increasing by 58. We're increasing by 500 or 290.
An average of 58 for the year.
But then you have to go back to
But you but yeah,
This is a 5-year cost.
Okay.
This is
Okay,
a 5
so-
year.
so-
This is a 5-year expense. The
It is.
1.5 million is a 5-year
Yeah.
expense. So we need to do the students over 5 years.
Right. And it's a cumulative issue. It's cumulative over those 5-year period.
But your increase is only going to be 58 students for each year, average.
Then divide this. Then say it's 310,000 a year is what you're spending.
Right.
Is it?
But it's going to be 1.566 million that we would not have to spend if we had the core students.
Okay.
Well-
That's the
Okay, so-
incremental difference.
Okay, we're going to have to work on our joint math here because each of us doing our individual math is probably not going to lead to good, productive conversations. Do you have additional questions or comments?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to make sure, if provided that this program is approved, we'd be 1 out of 6 or 7 in the state
That's correct.
to have a
That's
bachelor's
correct.
so far. Okay.
Currently 8 that.
And then, just to make sure that I understand again, a working nurse who has an associate's would be able to come back and work on her RN. Is that
That's
correct?
Her bachelor's.
On her
She would-
bachelor's, I'm
she
sorry.
would already
Her
be an RN.
bachelor's, yes,
She'd be
she's
a-
an associate. She'll be able to come back.
Get her bachelor's.
Or him, right. And then also, I saw where we have the curriculum, the classrooms, the clinicals. Have we started working on curriculum? I'm sorry, the classrooms, the clinicals, and the labs ready. What about curriculum?
They've
Have we
already started it. They've already
It's
had
already
it.
completed. That was the reason why we received the curriculum was already designed, and that was part of what was presented to the Board of Nursing, which they have approved that we meet their requirements.
Okay. Thank you. I'm excited.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
If we can go back a little bit, just a little bit more math. I understand that some of these numbers are difficult because we can't double the number of students and immediately double the revenue. Everything's incremental. If you add one more student, you may not need a faculty person. If you added 30 more, you might, all those sorts of things. So my question is, did you go through any of those? What if your number of students is wrong? What if it were 10% more or 20% less?
Yes, we did. We looked at a variety of ways and highs and lows. And then when you come up with this kind of a net difference, when you're almost $900,000 in additional revenue, if you're off a little bit high or low, you're well covered.
So if we had 50% as many students as
We would
thought,
just make more money. And you would hire.
Well,
You would make more
Be 50% less
proportionally.
students. is what you
50%
meant.
less students.
She said
What
more.
did I say?
Oh, less.
You said-
I'm sorry.
no,
Yeah,
she
sorry.
said more.
Yeah.
50% less,
She said
sorry.
more.
Yeah, well,
Half as many students.
There you go.
right, if you had half as many students, then the revenues would decline. Our faculty, we would not hire them as much, we wouldn't hire them on the same level, so we would manage the expenses to meet that demand. Because the faculty the expenses that we're projecting out are to really cover that kind of load of students.
Okay.
So if the students are less, we manage that. Your administrators would manage it.
Okay. That's what I'm looking for. Did you try other projections and it's still?
They did.
It still
And they-
comes up at least with a positive.
Yes,
Okay.
and they've talked to the other cohorts across the state, and they've been to Austin with the State Board of Nursing, and these numbers are very solid compared to what everybody else has been able to do.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Dr. Sherman?
I do. I really appreciate the detail that y'all have gone to after our questions before. It's really helpful. I do still have a couple of questions, and one is on the projection of students with the hours. It looks to me like you're assuming they're full-time students, or do you anticipate that there'll be some part-time students, and was that factored into your numbers?
Yes, if they're part-time students, it would expand out further time
Right.
period.
And
It'd take
affect
them.
the revenues that you're projecting.
It would. It could affect, it would expand out. But then again, if they're part-time, we wouldn't hire the second full-time faculty member.
Okay.
We wouldn't hire the fourth full-time faculty member. So we tried to compress it to a 5-year outlook, but you manage that as you move forward.
Right. Okay. And then my second question, of the 30 nursing hours, how much of that is didactic and how much is clinical?
All of it is didactic, except for.
We only have 2 clinical courses.
In the 30 hours?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mhm.
And are those based on campus or are those in the community?
They would be in the community. One is a community and public health clinical taken in their second semester, and then the third during their third semester and final, it would be their leadership clinical also, where they pair up with a nurse manager.
Right.
Yes.
And you have agreements with within the community to cover
Yes,
this
ma'am.
number of students?
Yes, we do. Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Hayward?
Yes, thank you for your work on this. It does answer a lot of the questions that we had before, so I very much appreciate that. My quick question is whether the tuition action we took earlier today would affect your numbers at all, and did you take that into consideration?
We did not use the action today. We used the numbers that we have as the present rates of tuition. Honestly, I don't think we feel like it would impact people from not coming because of the funding, if most of them are working for one thing, or if they're on financial aid.
My thought was that your revenue's understated then
Yeah,
by a little bit.
that's right. And we
Yeah.
always take the conservative. In fact, the 900,000 in revenue was another. There were different scenarios out there,
Yes.
and we ratcheted back on that. We never assume, although you can predict, but we held on it from the general standpoint of never assuming consideration is
Sure.
approved by the board.
We added, one of the things we did in consideration of that really addresses a lot of your questions about variability was by not including the revenue the first year. We felt like that would offset any type of variability that could happen as far as looking at just numbers. You know.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Salinas.
Can you give me you said it, I'd like to hear it again.
Sure.
What was the benefit of this? Who is this gonna benefit?
I love that question. It's going to benefit the community.
There you go, that's what I
And
wanted to hear.
anytime one of us
okay?
go into the hospital,
I
we're
want us to
benefited.
keep that in mind, please, for the future, okay?
Thank you.
Keep it in mind, okay, for the future. It's gonna help the community, okay? That's all I want to say.
That's it. Thank you.
All of us baby boomers will be.
Yes.
All of us baby boomers will be needing this.
Other questions or comments? Is there an action related to the proposal for the new Bachelor of Science in Nursing to approve?
I
Dr. Sherwood
second.
makes the motion, Mrs. Trotta makes the second. Any other additional questions or comments from the board? Is there public comment related to this item? Any public comment? Seeing none, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Salinas?
Yes.
Mr. Rivas?
Yes.
Ms. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Strata?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
No.
Ms. Averett?
Yes.
Yes.
That motion carries 8-1. Congratulations, and again, thank you for the work, and we look forward to hearing progress reports as we're moving forward.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I'd just like to make a comment on behalf
Yes.
of our faculty, and I'd recognize our faculty and of course our program director, Dr. McGuire, who have worked just over and beyond. It is a commitment, and I truly just want to extend to you that we still have some work ahead for the other approvals to come in, but I trust that we will get there, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your hard work. We have one final action item on our regular agenda for today, and that is the discussion and possible action related to the reappointment of Ms. Susan Hutchison to the TERS Zone Number 3 Board. She has agreed to continue serving. If there is a motion to that effect.
I so move.
Or I'll second it.
Ms. Estrada makes the motion, Mr. Rivas seconds. Any comment from the board? I want to say thank you, Ms. Hutchison, for your service, and good. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those voting in favor of the appointment of Ms. Hutchison to the TERS Zone Number 3 Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. That motion passes. At this time, we will go into closed session, and please allow me to read this lengthy closed session pursuant language. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 regarding pending and contemplated litigation or legal claims, or a settlement offer with possible discussion and action in open session, and the seeking of legal advice from counsel on pending or contemplated legal matters or claims with possible discussion and action in open session, and under Texas Government Code 551.074A1 regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, and under Texas Government Code 551.087 regarding discussion or deliberation of information received from a business prospect with which the college is conducting economic development negotiations, and or the deliberation of an offer of financial or other incentive to a business proposal with possible discussion and action in open session, and Texas Government Code 551.072 regarding deliberation of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property with possible discussion and action in open session. The time we're going into closed session is at 3:37 p.m. We'll take about a 5-minute recess to clear the room. Thank you. The board is returning from closed session at 4:30 p.m. with no action items. Would like to now review our calendar for the upcoming month. The March board meeting will be a week later than normally scheduled on March 17th. That is due to spring break. Being the second week of March. I hope staff and students enjoy that. It's already time to talk about spring break. Can you imagine that? Yep. And then our April board meeting will be back on our regular board meeting day on the 14th. For those of you who want to support the foundation in their activities, what used to be Bernie's Crawfish Boil and is now Bernie's Spring Bash is going to be on April 16th. And that's all the calendar we have for this point in time. Anything else for the good of the cause? If not, our board meeting is adjourned at 4:31 p.m. Thank you all.